Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. We are excited. We have a very special guest who is a bravery coach. So I'm excited to jump into all the things that she has done in the world. So welcome, Nicole Steinbach. So Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I've listened to some of
Well,
your podcast episodes, and it's a wonderful community you're building here.
thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And, let me just give our audience a little bit of context. So Nicole is the founder of Steinbach, LLC, and the host of the Celebrate Brave podcast, which is an international brave, and she is an international bravery coach. She helps women build their bravery and show them how to stress and work less. Well, that is something we all need to be doing.
Exactly.
Less
Yes.
stress, less work. That's all good. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here. It's great to have you on the show. And I want to thank our audience as well, because we know you have a choice as to, what podcast you listen to. So we're grateful that you continue to listen to Women in Leadership Talk. So Nicole, let's get into who you are. What's brought you to here today? I know you've, got a varied background of technology into coaching. So maybe just walk us through your journey and how you got here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, so I love to start off with I am the international bravery coach. I focus on careers, and it's because I'm not naturally brave. So I actually know how to break the skill of bravery down into steps. Clarity is the first one, momentum is the second one, accountability is the third one, because I'm not naturally brave. But I needed to become brave. I needed to become skilled at bravery because I was born into a single mom. I was born into financial strife, domestic abuse, etc. I also have a stutter, which might come out a little bit. And I was insistent that that is not going to be my future. There was this really present moment, and it was for a very short period of my life, but my mother literally struggled to buy food. And so we were going through this couch looking for coins. And I decided this is never happening to me again. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. But my whole family, I have a very blue collar family. They do amazing work building things in the world and running restaurants and like really like hands-on for the community. And I just kept hearing, oh, we got to send this one to college. We got to send this one to college. And so it was becoming clear, like I'm going there, but now I have to figure out how to do it. And then I have to become the person who does the things, right? And that was really the first time that I stepped into my bravery. And from college, I discovered this whole thing called being a refugee, which I was like, this is amazing. And I started volunteering. I was working as a secretary to get through school. And I really, really, really wanted to work with the federal program when I graduated. However, I'm 42 years old as we record this. And so when I graduated is when all of the immigration programs got shoved underneath something called the Department of Homeland Security. So
Mm.
that job was gone. Here's another chance. I need to be brave. What am I going to do? Well, I had been an assistant at the computer science. I was a secretary at the computer science department. And so my boyfriend at the time said, hey, you don't really like, there's no job for you to step into. How about you come to Germany with me? I just got a postdoc. Being brave, right? Clarity. What do I want to do? I want to work with, refugees. Well, okay, I'll go to Germany for a few years. I'll continue doing assimilation and integration and English as a second language for 8 months. What can go wrong?
I'm afraid
so,
to ask.
so dear listener, I lived there for 13 years. I did the freelancing thing for a little bit, and then I got offered by one of my clients to join his team and his company. I became a consultant before I knew what a consultant was. I just knew I wanted to travel and make really good money. And that I knew enough about technology to be dangerous in meetings. And I asked really good questions. So I grew my career there. I started as, again, an assistant, then went into consulting. Like I said, didn't even know what a consultant was. Someone got sick and they asked me if I'd travel. And I was like, absolutely. They gave me a printed binder of questions to ask because there weren't laptops
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
for
Okay.
everyone, right? Flew up to Norway, did this consulting thing, came back, discovered I was doing consulting, and then just grew my career from there. And when I left corporate, I was a global senior director of change and communications, running multi-million-dollar projects with teams of hundreds of people, making massive change inside of a corporate tech company and really implementing those strategic things. And as part of that job, because I ask really good questions and I listen really intently, they actually sent me to become a coach. I got certified the first time, then the second time. And in 2018, I realized I love what I do, but I want to now do it for more people. And without the constructs of helping someone be successful at their current employer, rather support someone, because I kept getting in trouble for doing this anyways. So a little bit of that. How do you want to be successful in your career and then in your life, independent of what you do and where you do it and who's paying you for it? And then I started my own business, and that was in 2019. Navigated 2020, and I still support women all over the world. Most of them are in tech. Some of them are in engineering, mathematics, academia, etc. And then a few who are in another form of consulting, like pharmaceuticals or aeronautics, etc. Yeah, so that's
Good.
me.
Wow. So that's a quite the journey. And it sounds, I heard a lot of great attributes like resiliency,
Yes,
determination, and agility, right? Like really
yes,
figuring out like how to pivot. So I'm curious, like as you were working with some of these individuals,
yeah,
that is quite complex when you're inside an organization and you're
yeah,
coaching within that organization, especially if that person is struggling
yeah,
with the culture, with the leadership, or with, whatever policies, procedures, whatever it is they might be
whatever.
struggling with. So how and what did you do to help people find their bravery?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was still inside of a corporation, we were actually handed a goal, and there were coaches who were listed inside of the coach pool that anybody could pull from. And
Right.
then there were coaches that were assigned in. So I was one of the people who got either, I got voluntold basically, right? And it was specifically geared towards either an issue or a potential growth opportunity.
Okay.
And so at that point in time, it was a lot around, okay, this is already the container that we're inside of. Most of the time, people broke free of the container because it wasn't what they actually wanted. Or if they just took a beat and reflected and answered, just for us, really foundational things like, what is it that you actually want?
Mm.
When you say you want to become a VP, whose voice is that in your head? Is that your voice? Right? When you're having this conflict, what are your values behind this? What are your values overall, right? But now as an entrepreneur, I really start off with what matters to you when you retire. So in 30 years, some of my clients are really close to retirement. Some of my clients are very far away from retirement. So if that's a challenge, then I say, okay, let's pretend that we're in 30 years. So now you're 80 and there's a huge celebration for you.
Love that.
What are you celebrating?
Yeah.
Who is giving the welcome speech? Who's in the room? Where does it take place? And it crystallizes very powerfully. I've never had a client where this didn't crystallize for them what their gap was.
Yeah. That is a very um powerful journey that you take someone on, because all of a sudden it's not about what you do for a living, it's who you are
Yes.
being, and
Yes.
what is that legacy that you want to leave, or that
Yes.
imprint you want to leave on the world. And
Yeah.
oftentimes we get so busy in the doing that we forget about the being, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that those that you support in helping them gain that clarity and walk through that journey, I'm sure that that's a big eye opener. So good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I use my Build Your Brave framework, right? Like I concretely use the templates, I use the mindset, I use the questions. And once a month, at least so I do one-on-one coaching. I don't run a group. Being
Right.
this bespoke, unique thing is important to me. And at the same time, women in STEM the number one word, according to McKinsey and all these organizations that women use for their emotional experience at work, is lonely.
Yeah.
So at least once a month, I bring my clients together. It's optional and we'll do something. And I'm doing it in conjunction with them. Like I'm running through the exercise as well. I'm drinking my own champagne, as they say. And
But you
I
didn't
just,
say beer.
no, I mean, okay, we could do that too. But, and I did this 30-year celebration thing, and my 30-year celebration has dramatically changed since 2021 to a point where I really was like, is this really mine? Whose voice is this? And no, this is really my voice in my head. Because as my children get older and as the world shifts and as I lose people who really matter to me, right? And I help more women, where it was taking place, how it was fundamentally changed. And so that exercise is so beautiful for, I think, for everyone.
I would totally agree. Totally agree. I think that's, there's lots of different ways you can go about it. But I think that does, the word you use that was so important, it crystallizes, right?
Yes.
Because it gets you out of your head and into your heart. And,
Yes.
as leaders and as individuals in the world, like it's important that we can shift from that head space to our heart space.
Heart space.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about bravery, right? Like, how do you define bravery? What does that mean to you, right? Like some people might think it's, you can put yourself up against that, lion who's showing his teeth at you, or bravery might be just walking out the front door in a day. So how do you define it?
There you go. You did it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. So I love to quote Glennon Doyle, who is an American author. She has a podcast as well. And this is from currently her last book called Untamed. And she says to her child, brave is disappointing everyone else, just not yourself. So if you have to disappoint someone, then please allow it to be someone else who can manage their feelings and not yourself who has to manage your legacy. And the very first concrete career example that really was the overwork piece, the overproduce piece, the being over available piece, is I had been working a lot. So when I talk about like overworking, it's because I've done it, right? And so my partner, my boyfriend at the time, who then became my husband of over a decade, had actually said to me, hey, I really enjoy being with you. I actually love you. But if you cancel another holiday, I just don't think I can keep doing this, right? So I was in between a rock and a hard place, it felt like, because we were going for a holiday. It was going to be a 4-day holiday, very short, right? And then I got a phone call on a Thursday. Hey, we're buying a company. You need to build the entire strategy for bringing in the employee engagement. This was over 30,000 employees. They told me on Thursday for Monday.
Wow.
Now, yeah.
A lot of notice, Nicole.
That's
You didn't step into that?
Yeah. And of course it's, you can just buy a company like that, right? You don't have to go through any review,
No
especially
due
not in
diligence
Europe.
whatsoever.
Absolutely not. And but I had a history of just making it happen, right?
Sure.
Being the magic who makes it happen. And I'm really good at crystallizing and focusing down the key thoughts. And I said, no. I
Well
said,
done.
I said his name, the gentleman who was calling me, who I'm still in contact with. I said, hey, listen, I've canceled whatever. It doesn't take 3 days to buy a company. You guys have been running this. No, I'm not available. I'll be on holiday. And it was so hard to deal with my fear, right? I thought I was like self-centered or self-serving or selfish or whatever, but also like knowing he's going to have some very strong emotions, which he did, because we were in sort of like a triangle situation, right? He has his role, I have mine, and there's a goal at the top of the triangle.
Sure.
And now I have said, good luck with your goal.
Yeah.
Like it was terrifying to me, but I'll tell you what, it worked. They found somebody else. They ended up having to pay a PR agency. They learned a very hard lesson. I didn't learn a hard lesson. I learned an important lesson. They learned a hard lesson, right? And then we were able to navigate through that conflict. And it was tough, but man, clarity. I'm not going to cancel a holiday with my partner. Momentum. Oh, having that conversation in an unexpected way. I remember where I was standing. I remember where the sun was. I remember the shape of the phone. Oh my gosh. Right. And then accountability, being the person who sets a boundary for herself and then lives through the consequences, right? I cried. Listen, I cried in the conflict navigation meeting. I cried in the follow-up meeting. It was a mess. I was so awkward in it, but that's brave. Brave is deciding, who am I becoming? What's important to me? What am I going to do? What I'm not going to do? And then allowing other people to be disappointed.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's such a great and very powerful example to share, because I think men and women both do this, but women, we are so quick to say yes. And then we
Yes.
figure out how to cope, to tolerate, like all of those skills we have to navigate it. And then yet inside, we're resentful, we're miserable because we didn't put those boundaries in place and stand up for ourselves. And,
Yeah.
I guess what I would ask you there is, you took a big risk, number
Very
one.
much. Very
But
much.
what were the benefits, Nicole? How did that benefit you
Oh my
professionally,
gosh.
but also personally?
Oh my gosh. So personally, I got married to the man that I was dating
Okay,
and
that's a great outcome.
had two amazing children. Can I tell you, Vicki, I've told this story more than, probably more than a dozen times globally, because it happened when I was 27 years old. I'm now 42. I travel a lot, or I used to travel a lot for work, and I was invited onto a lot of very fun stages and into panels and things. You are now the first person to ever ask that question.
Okay.
And I try to like get this answer in some way, shape, or form, because it's the follow-up that proves the point. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I got married. I have two amazing children. I now live in between Germany and the United States. I get to coach these amazing people. My self-confidence skyrocketed, right? Because I did it awkwardly. I did it crying. I did it sweating. I did it in a way that now I would be like, okay, we can do that a little bit more effectively, right? A little less emotional. We can be a little less name calling, because I definitely was calling names. In one of the follow-up meetings, I was like, yeah, that was really stupid. I mean, you were stupid when you did that, right? Very not fantastic. But the other thing is that I never spoke to the key stakeholder ever again. I got pushed 3 levels down the organization. I got a new manager, and then a new manager. And when it came, and I was like, I'm getting punished. When it came to the annual cycle, hold on. The story ends differently than you think it does. Okay, listener. So when it came to the annual thing, I was like, I was geared. I had all my data. Like, let's talk about my raise. And I was like, ready to fight. And my new manager, she says to me, it's already through the system. There's nothing to talk about. The guy who was the key stakeholder, who was in the C level, he already put it through the system. There's nothing to talk about. And I thought, well, I just got screwed over for saying no. I'm already like my whole head, right? I ruined my career, everything. It was almost a 20% raise
Wow.
with a
That is
promotion,
awesome.
with a stock award. So years later, I was speaking to the COO. So there was the C-level person and then his operating executive. He and I we happened to run into each other, and we got into a conversation. I was like, hey, I just always wondered, like, what happened there? Why all the levels? Why that? And do you know what he said to me? He said, because then we knew we could trust you.
Oh, very good.
We already knew you were intelligent. We already knew you had the skills. We already knew you would get the work done. But when you actually said no and you stopped working all the time and your work quality shot up, we knew we could trust you. We didn't have to sit on you anymore. And that blew my mind. And at the time, I was still running teams. And I took a look at my team and I was like, holy crap, I have way too many people reporting to me that don't need to report to me because they know exactly what they're doing. I restructured my team. I got off of a bunch of people's backs. I gave everyone more freedom. So that one no set me up for just success after success after success after success and a lot of sleep.
Wow. I was going to say both professionally and personally, it sounds like.
That's
And,
right.
um, that's a great reflection as to how one situation where you expressed bravery had
Yes.
such a long-term ripple effect, not just for
Yeah.
you, but for many, many others. Because I'm also sure that that C-level executive that you did say no to, he probably also learned a great deal in that situation with how he was leading, right? Because to your point, he didn't just buy a company and in 3 days it's a done deal. So when did he need to bring you into the conversation
Mm-hmm.
so that you could be part of the journey, not the
Yeah,
cleanup crew at the
that's right. That's
end of
right.
the journey?
That's right. Because if you're doing one of these, it's a little bit of a fun fact I learned later. When I was doing M&As at a more senior level, you have to work with an external agency. You cannot do this without an external governance
Sure.
consulting advice
Yeah,
thing, right?
exactly.
And they literally make you sign early in the process that you have a concrete plan to inform your employees. So
Yep.
he had been without intention. I don't think he was trying to be rude. I just don't think he got it that it was 30,000 employees. And it was only one section of a major company, right? So there was 100,000 employees. This was just 30,000 of them. And I don't think he just didn't understand that telling people, having a concrete plan, educating, onboarding, informing them, all the things is more than one email. So in his head, he was like, yeah, I can totally sign off on this. We'll just send an email. I'll have Nicole write the email because
Yeah.
that was his only connection to internal communications. He would show up once a quarter, right? He would get the data from his ops person and he would send an email. So he didn't see and understand all the things that had to happen across almost 100 different countries with works councils and unions and all this other stuff because he wasn't a part of it. So he was signing his name to this governance agency. And when suddenly they didn't have somebody, there was a significant piece of education for him. And I just happened to know that led him to coaching, to professional services, and actually led to, hold your horses, a spiritual awakening.
Wow. Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
that is such a great story because maybe not at the same level, but this is a very normal
Yes.
encounter that takes place in corporate environments. And I spent
Yes.
myself 30 years in corporate where leaders aren't thinking about what's that ripple effect. Like
That's right.
oftentimes it's, yeah, I'll just send a communication. And it drives me crazy when they
Yes.
say, oh, I'm going to send an email. It's like, no, you gather people, you have conversation, you explain, you take them on the journey with you, because the chances of you getting buy-in are far greater when you actually have a verbal conversation versus sending out an email that can be interpreted a million different ways.
That's right.
But it's also like what you just described there, Nicole, is so powerful because it's, this person was then quickly immersed
Yes.
into, oh my gosh, there are a gazillion webs that are being woven here, and how do I course correct quickly?
That's right.
And so hopefully that helps set him up for future.
Oh, it
And,
did.
and to all the executives that are listening, whether you're in, technology, finances, it doesn't matter what sector you're in, legal, like communication is absolutely the
Yes.
most important skill that you will ever use in a
That's right.
leadership role. And
That's right.
if you want people to go on that journey with you, then make sure that that's something you're investing in yourself for.
And I really, so I'm not going to say his name because I don't have permission.
Of course.
But at this moment in time, he was on, we called it the corporate officer level. So technically he was in the C-suite, but he was not, the CEO, CSO, CTO, et cetera, right? but his career was stalled. This was his third corporate officer level at various companies because his leadership trust was horrible.
Yeah.
His communication, when you were eye to eye to him, was fantastic, but he didn't know how to scale it. And since that happened, again, I'm just going to repeat, like it was over what 15 years ago or something, right? He is now the CEO of a name brand tech company that you and I know very well, right? And it was because his communication got better, because his trust got better, because he invested in himself. And this is particularly true for women, right? When I get the privilege, honestly, it's a privilege. When I get a privilege to talk to women who have, had someone break the glass from above, because quite frankly, the people who are above need to break that glass. It's easier for them, gravity, right? But also has climbed through the glass, climbed up the ladder, whatever the case may be. The vast majority of the time, they have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into themselves, whether it's an MBA or a leadership program in Scotland or wherever else, or a personal coach who is specific to their goal. That is what's going to make the biggest difference.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. That was a great share, and thank you. And I'm sure our audience is listening intently as to, how to say no. I think, you've highlighted a number of things, those boundaries,
yes,
why that's important. Saying no is okay. And the consequences might not necessarily be a negative. It could actually be a positive. So trust in yourself that you're doing what's right by you. But Nicole, before we wrap up, because I'm cognizant of our time. So go back and share with us those 3 steps of bravery that you talked about in the very beginning. I think that's an important takeaway for our audience, and then maybe add one more takeaway that you want to leave with the audience today.
Absolutely. Okay. So the first phase is clarity. You find out what you want, and it's okay if you start with what you don't want. Most of my clients start with, I don't want. I don't want to work 60 hours a week. I don't want to be underpaid, whatever it is. And then you figure out what you want and you tell everyone around you. No more secret goals. You actually have to tell people. I have a lot of my clients start off with really simple things like, I'm looking for some used flower pots, like really simple things. But then you have to build that and tell everyone, especially your board of advisors, right? The second phase is momentum. This is your action plan. And here's the important part about an action plan. And we covered it beautifully, but implicitly in this conversation. It's not just what you do, it's also what you feel. You have to be willing to feel the trepidation, the fear, the bravery, the confidence, the joy, the sadness. You have to feel it. Okay. These are things like interest interviewing, networking, updating your LinkedIn, getting onto your resume, and like all the other things, right, that will help you reach your goal. And then the third phase is accountability. And this is choosing who you are becoming and then becoming her. Imperfectly, consistently. I love to talk about the 2% change. Okay, I used to talk about the 1%. I know the infinity 1%, but I mainly coach highly ambitious women, and the 1%, they were like making into 5%. So I figured out to say the 2%, and then they were willing to follow me along. You got to change it for every client, right?
Yes.
So those are the 3 parts. I actually, in season 3 of my podcast, Celebrate Brave, I walk through each of those, but then the underlining frameworks as well. It's like 20 episodes. You can search for the topic and dive into exactly how to do these things, but then you want to turn it into an experience just for yourself. Because I love to talk about SMART goals, but most of my clients are neurodiverse, and SMART goals may be wonderful, but it may actually be something that spins them out. Great. Then we're not going to do SMART goals. We're going to do what serves you, right? So learn how to do it philosophically, theoretically, but then you got to make it your own, right?
Always. That's beautiful.
Yes. And then the second thing I would share is that the accountability triangle, what I just described with like, who's my job, who's your job, right? And then the goal on top of that, I actually have a free learning. It's got a video, it's got a workbook, it's on my website. I'll give the link. It's churchsteinbach.com and then work less. and download that, start getting really clear about one situation. And I've had quite a number of people utilize this independent. So I was teaching it and then as part of a workshop, but now I have people using it independently. And the feedback has been between 1 and 3 hours less effort per week.
Nice.
I don't know about you, but 1 hour of less effort a week is a win for me. And
Exactly.
I really want our communities here, I really want them to have that extra hour because that's sleep, that's eating nutritious food, that's going for a walk or having a workout, whatever the case may be, you deserve to stop doing other people's freaking jobs.
Love it. Love it. That's a great way to wrap up today's episode. That was fantastic. Again, that's tricksteinbach.com. You can go on and get this free resource to support you. Nicole, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us from Colorado. Or if you were in Germany, yes, we would have loved having you from Germany as well. So appreciate you sharing and really powerful stories. And, you know, no matter what age stage you're in your leadership journey, you know, we can always take these lessons and think about how that can apply to each of us. Yeah. So, you know, do some reflection on that, audience, and see how it can impact you. So, Nicole, thank you again for joining today and keep being brave. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And audience, if you're interested in learning more about your own leadership, please go on to the Will Empowered website. That's 1L. You can take our free leadership quiz. It'll give you some insight as to how you're showing up as a leader and maybe some opportunities of how you can get even stronger as a leader. So we look forward to seeing you or, you know, hearing your comments on our next Will Talk podcast. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.